good day, fun friends. My name is Rob, and I help people realize their true selves. So first off, I guess this video is the big welcome to my new YouTube channel here. So I've got a few YouTube channels. Anybody who knows me in real life is used to this from me. But it seemed appropriate to start a YouTube channel just for like the spiritual hippie kind of stuff. And also because Rob Alchemy is the handle through which I do a lot of my art and now a lot of my intuitive art and reading. So welcome to the Rob Alchemy YouTube channel. The first video I want to make, this is the most obvious one because this is the single most common question I get and I see in very spiritual groups on Facebook is how do I connect with my spirit guides? So the information I'm going to give you is based on my experience and my perception and, well, pretty much how I've come to understand things. And yeah, so the number one rule with videos like this when you're speaking on spiritual topics is take what resonates and leave what doesn't, okay? Because not everybody's perspective is for everyone. The reason I'm doing this, even though there's a million channels on YouTube just like this, is because, you know what, there's probably a few people who will jive most with how I present things, just like how I've got my favorite YouTubers and speakers on these subjects. How do we connect with our spirit guides? So to answer that question first, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, or a lot. And before I answer that, the first thing I'm going to ask is, well, do you really know where your soul comes from? So your soul, your essence, essentially your stream of consciousness. Consciousness is its own subset of quantum physics. Consciousness is quantum, and in context, how that matters here is because consciousness is fractal. So that's like if you take a picture of an apple and you cut it up into grids, you're not going to end up with little squares that are sections of that picture. You're going to end up with squares that each contain that whole picture. So in this way, consciousness is infinitely divisible. And this kind of vaguely explains where our consciousness comes from. Basically, your soul, your consciousness, is a fractal piece of the larger source consciousness. Now, that being said, going on the idea that we all originate from the same source, kind of like fingers from a hand, obviously, unity, we are all one, we all know this. So this is now applicable to all other conscious beings in the universe. So what I'm getting at here is on that higher level, your guides are essentially the soup of consciousness that's actually one with you. So what this means is that your guides are literally another version or other aspects of you. And they're not really quantifiable like the way we think they are. This is because everything beyond human perspective is non-linear. Our perspective as humans is linear. So we tend to put all these things that are not linear into linearized terms so that we as humans can conceptualize it. So one of the first questions I usually get is, how many spirit guides do I have? And the answer is yes. Because once you get beyond linearity, these things aren't really quantifiable in the same way. It's not that you have Uncle Jim and 3 angels and 2 other souls that used to be incarnate human who were assigned to you. All of these things, think of them like droplets of water. Water can join and coalesce into a bigger drop of water, and that doesn't detract from that water. It doesn't mean that Uncle Jim merging with this angel, I'm just putting this in really basic terms, means that once they've joined, something else exists. They're both in there. It's just now that they've coalesced, they've kind of realized the greater potential of both those streams of consciousness simultaneously. So our guides, and well, in fact, all consciousness on the other side of the veil does work this way. It can break off, it can coalesce with other blobs of consciousness, if you will. So really, it's more like a soup of consciousness rather than individual beings. They come and go. But in a nutshell, that's how it's been explained and shown to me. Okay, so now that I've turned that into an entertainingly complex thing, how do we connect with them? Okay, write these steps down. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Step 1, are you listening? You're already there. Again, as humans, we have this very linearized point of view, very linear, very limited, because humans are very limited in our perspective. But when you say, how do I connect with them, you're already assuming that you're not. As I mentioned, it's you helping you. It's other aspects of you which you're already connected to. Now, the thing is, this is why I call it the entourage rather than guides, because it's like that soup of consciousness and it is ubiquitous. You could not be alone even if you wanted to. So, if you want to open up that line of communication with your entourage and you're expecting a particular technique to be more effective than another, get that idea out of your mind. That simply isn't the way it works. But if you're not sure how to start, just start by speaking out loud to them. Hey guys, how are you doing? Just like that, just like you would a friend, if nothing else. Again, if the intent is there is no way they're not going to hear you. So then that raises the question, how do I hear them? And this brings us to the topic of intuition. So our intuition, again, this is one of those things that when we try to put it in linear terms, it can become very misunderstood very quickly. The short answer is through the heart center. This is because our heart center is where our intuition works through, and our intuition on a level is actually one and the same with our creative sense, our sense of creativity. Now the truth is, they're already talking to you. The question is, are you receptive to it or not? Now, how do we get into a receptive state where we can hear these messages? Our entourage does speak to us, but the way it speaks to us is very gentle and very subtle. And I'm talking about how we tend to limit things and linearize them. That being said, there are still rules that we must both follow on both sides of the veil, and these pertain to free choice. So sometimes there are things you would like your entourage to be able to do and tell you that they simply can't, because if they did, it would be too much interference and therefore would negate free will. So really it boils down to listening to your intuition. And the way we do that is, we all know what intuition is. It's that gut feeling. The way to trust your intuition is you go with that first voice that speaks up, that first thing that pops into your mind. And this is really important, no effort. Okay, if you're conjuring a message that you're putting effort into receiving, that could be then your subconscious thinking of something, giving it to you. We know it's our intuition because it's just there. You didn't even have to try. And efforting actually can also create its own block. When you're trying really, really, really hard to hear those guides, what are they saying? I think they're saying... This actually throws up a huge block because now you're listening to your mind and not your heart. We tend to think up here, but really the communication from the other side of the veil and with our higher selves comes from the heart, because the heart center is where literally heaven meets earth, if you want to use that cliche. Also, another thing to keep in mind is often people will say, well, I can't hear my guides. Okay, well, what are you asking them? Oh, nothing. I just want them to tell me what I need to know. Well, no questions yield no answers. And if you do ask a question that is very vague, chances are you're going to get a very vague response. Now, what a lot of people are after, especially when you're early on in your exploration and you're just starting to discover this stuff, is you just simply want to experience them, and that is perfectly fair. A great way to do that is you can ask them general things. You can ask them things like, how can I know you're with me? Can you help me feel you? Can you tell me what it is that I need to know today? Sometimes you might get something, and sometimes you might get nothing, because at the same time, there may also be situations where you're not supposed to be able to see around the next corner. You are to figure the situation out on your own as part of your growth. So bear in mind that absolutely everything you experience and that happens around you and in your perception, everything, how many things now? All the things are for your highest benefit, even if it doesn't seem like it at the time, because you cannot grow in a vacuum. So sometimes you may get silence. And if you do, there's probably a good reason for that, because you helping you knows what you is doing. So that being said, that's about all I have for this video. I want to keep it in kind of simple terms because I do understand that there are a lot of people who are very early on in their exploration and really expanding their awareness. and you don't know what you don't know. And well, basically, the easiest way to go about this is by not overcomplicating it. A lot of these answers to your questions may seem oversimplified at face value, and that's because, well, the reality is a lot of things really are actually that simple. We as humans, we really do have a heavy tendency to overcomplicate things, and that's a classic symptom of thinking with the mind, whereas, if you didn't know, you can think with your heart, absolutely. And again, that's where the information from your higher self is going to come through, always through the heart. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, maybe share it. I'm going to be making many more of these because, well, I'm a huge spiritual hippie and I love this stuff. And I've got plenty to offer and share that I feel could be beneficial for other people, kind of in the same boat as me, where we're exploring it and we're expanding our awareness, and really everything that a spiritual awakening boils down to is expansion of awareness, or expansion of perception, or expansion of consciousness. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and just know that I love you. And if you guys have any questions, or you just need somebody to talk to about your experiences, my inbox is always open, okay? We'll see you next time.